this article is written from the standpoint that the U.S. anti-war movement is like this thing that the fascist, we need to get in on that, man. We need to get a piece of that anti-war movement. This vibrant, enormous, very powerful movement. We need to get in on that. Like fascists are changing their politics in order to get in on the anti-war movement and to make headway in left circles when the left is just impotent and the anti-war movement is almost non-existent.
Yeah. I think that what this really comes down to is it's fundamentally it's the result of, or it's the logic of the substitution of the movement for the party. Like the concept of this is a left movement as opposed to this is a left party, or this is whatever. This is socialists are for this movement. So if you're for this movement, but you are not socialist, then you're trying to take over our space, whatever. This is the result of having nothing more solid to identify with, to be disciplined by, to contribute to, than the movement, which is supposed to be nebulous and constantly shifting back and forth. But if you don't have one, all you have is just the movement. Right. And it becomes then the keeping of the gates becomes extremely important.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Because in the past, I would say I'm in a socialist group, and we want this movement to touch everybody. We want everybody in this movement because this movement, we want it to succeed. And if it succeeds, it will make a better ground. They will make the grounds more fertile for what we want to accomplish, which is, socialism. But now it's like, this is where I come to express my socialist leanings. So
as an individual.
Right, exactly.
So your individual politics matter more than anything else, which is why you need to have anti-fascist witch hunters like Alexander Reed Ross to find out who the individuals and their other tiny little micro groups that might adhere around them are doing and thinking, what they actually think. This is why you can't believe someone's socialist credentials, even if they have a bad past. I'm not saying that Matthew Heimbach is a person who has reformed or whatever, but I don't think that it is impossible that he has. I don't think he has, based on the information given in this article. But if someone decided to go from the far right to the far left, I think that that's any other time in history except for right now. That's not something that people would blink about.
No, that's something that we would celebrate. Like if a person said, trying not to go back too far, but when he says, that patriotism is for your home country and a celebration of ethnic identities conducive with socialism and even a proper manifestation of the Marxist ideal, I would say that's a person who needs further to go and should come along better, more, whatever. But I don't think that's a secret. I mean, maybe in this individual's case it is, but I don't think that's just objectively soft fascism. I think that's
but if you're an anarchist, you would think that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But also,
and this guy writes books for AK Press, so he's an anarchist.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a good point. Yeah. I guess you also could say the Bolsheviks and subsequently all MLs and so on are really just red fascists anyways. So.
Yeah, and that is something that anarchists say.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. From the earliest days of the communist movement, there were many attempts to synthesize Marxist critiques of capitalism with nationalism. The most notable example may be Weimar Germany's National Bolshevik movement. There's a link here that I didn't see before. What is this link to? Oh, it's that National Bolshevism in Weimar Germany article that we did a 2-part episode on.
Yeah, what was that, like a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, go back and listen to that.
Yeah. The most notable example may be Weimar Germany's National Bolshevik movement, which combined social traditionalism, nationalism, and elements of fascism with an authoritarian socialist bent that often venerates leaders like Joseph Stalin. The term National Bolshevism is now used to describe these trends that, even though outside of the Russian context, mix vulgar Marxism with autocratic nationalism and hierarchical social values. So this is essentially correct. I think that the National Bolsheviks in Germany, it's sort of a catch-all term. There were far rightists who believed that that Germany should ally with Stalin's Russia and make a block against the decadent liberal West, and they were called National Bolsheviks. There were people like Ernst Niekisch who started to formulate a still essentially folkish nationalist kind of capital G, capital S German socialism that was still very corporatist and sort of just fit neatly in the conservative revolutionary milieu, but was more explicitly anti-capitalist. And they call them National Bolsheviks because they also had that sort of orientation towards the East. And then there were people like Karl Adolf Pedel, who believed in a councilist republic.
Yeah, like they genuinely had like a very Soviet-inspired and even
but still held ideas about like you still have folkish ideas about like the German nation without any kind of anti-Semitism mixed with anti-capitalism like the conservative revolutionaries had or like the Strasserites had. But anyway, let's move on. I think we're going to talk about both of those.
Even in the next sentence.
These forces even played into the development of the National Socialist Party in Germany, with the Strasserite wing offering themselves as a uniquely socialistic form of Nazism that injected anti-Semitic conspiracy theories into class struggle politics. The Strasserites, named after the Nazi leaders Gregor and Otto Strasser, argued for taking on the German elite class and employed a more thorough anti-capitalist form of Nazism. They mobilized a type of fascist economic populism, suggesting that capitalism was a system created and controlled by Jews to destroy the creative genius of the German folk. These ideas have been an important part of far-right movements since, often mobilizing class struggle narratives by reframing them in anti-Semitic, conspiratorial, and racial nationalistic terms. And I would say that, like, Gregor and Otto kind of have a split, and Gregor stays with the Nazis and remains this sort of like more anti-capitalist Nazi, whereas Otto, when he splits and forms the Black Front.
Right.
When he forms the Black Front goes more like sort of explicitly pre-modern corporatist. Maybe even you could say that they were like a guild socialist type of socialism.
That's laughter.
Yeah, that's a baby laughing in the next room.
Yeah. Well, good.
She's having a great time.
Yeah, she sounds like she's having a great time.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So like, and when Otto split from Gregor, he sort of tried to play down his former anti-Semitism a little bit. He was still a racial nationalist, but not a scientific or biological racist. He thought
very much like a cultural chauvinist.
Right, exactly. He thought that minorities that were in Germany could assimilate or live in enclaves, but if they didn't assimilate, then they should be shut off from participation in the political structures of the country.
Yeah.
So this is just me sort of dwelling on minutia that I am privy to as a result of my PhD studies, because this is something I study.
Well, yeah, and I also think this is helpful. I mean, if anybody thinks they don't need it, you can just read this article. But otherwise, the reason why we're doing an episode about it is for all this extra context,
Right. And I will say that Strasserites in the post-war world, since World War II, are much, much more racist than Otto Strasser ever was. Because like third positionists sort of adopt Hitlerite biological racism and then add anti-capitalism to it. And even if you look at sort of explicitly anti-capitalist variations of fascism, like the Franco-Freda's Nazi Maoists, or like Casa Pound in Italy. Why is it always Italy? Anyway, but they're like very much anti-capitalist, but very, very racist. Much more so than Strasser ever was. And Strasser was, he was a racist. Absolutely.
I mean, he was in the Nazi Party.
He was. That was obviously not a deal breaker for him.
Right.
Though he did, in his writings after the war, try to distance himself from Hitler's anti-Semitism, like calling it a stupid obsession and saying that it distracted from what the real problem was, which was capitalism, stuff like that. But still, I mean, he was a rightist and a cultural chauvinist. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's move on. As income inequality and capitalist instability becomes more ubiquitously acknowledged across the working class, the right has, more generally, looked for a way to capture popular narratives around class struggle. Through its own version of anti-capitalism, the right is attempting to recruit from the left and base the notion of class struggle on ethnic nationalism and conspiracy theories. These trends are also contemporarily referred to as third positionism, an idea opposed to both capitalism and communism for their purported values of multiculturalism, egalitarianism, and modernism. Since the more fragmented political scene of the New Left, the far right has actively forged connections with social movements where it can find immediate, if superficial, agreement on immediate grounds. The anti-war and anti-globalization movement of the 1990s and 2000s saw attempts at co-optation by those on the right who wanted to push for U.S. isolationism, economic nationalism, and to build alliances with authoritarian leaders who were at odds with the U.S., as well as mobilize around anti-Semitic conspiracy theories emerging from 9/11. Many far-right activists continue to engage in intrism, in joining left movements to push their politics rightward. I don't doubt that this happens, but as a person who's been involved in left movements for, I don't know, more than half my life now, yeah. I would say that this is a very rare thing. Fascists do not join Trotskyist microsects to try to push their politics rightward. The thing that does happen is fascists or, libertarians or whatever, anti-war rightists. In the United States, it's more like paleo-conservative rightists who join anti-war movements because it's something that they believe in already and try to dominate with their political message.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to this whole paragraph, I don't have anything really further to elaborate other than what I just already said. About what a movement is. I also think that fascists are numerically far less significant than I think that this might suggest.
Well, you're about to see why he thinks this is a super important thing to talk about. Red-Brown alliances, or coalitions that unite radical left-wing groups with fascists, may seem like aberrations, but they have become increasingly prominent in the last several years, says Alexander Reed Ross, who researches far-right movements. Ross says that while National Bolshevism may have emerged in the 1930s, since the 1970s, it has continued to have a heavy influence on the far right that is trying to respond to the gains of the left. Now, just for those of you who don't know, Alexander Reed Ross is an anarchist, or I don't even know if he would. I guess he's an anarchist, but I don't know of any anarchist that could, in good faith, work in a think tank funded by the Koch brothers that gives education seminars for law enforcement, including Homeland Security and federal law enforcement agencies as well, and then employs Republican senators, former CIA spooks, NSA. I mean, if you just look at the list of who is involved in this think tank that funds or that employs, that he's actually on their website. You go to it, it shows him and the other people that he's working with. Here, let me bring this up real quick. Well, first of all, he tried to get a job with the Integrity Initiative, which is an information warfare group run by the British government that was primary goal is to generate hostility with Russia, and has the group that I was just talking about is the Network Contagion Research Institute, which, as I mentioned, does education for federal and local law enforcement groups about the possibility of disinformation and far-right threats. And it's essentially, when I say disinformation, I'm speaking specifically about Russian-funded disinformation or whatever. So he's primarily concerned with the infiltration of the nefarious Eastern Slavic disinformation networks that control Americans, apparently. And the Network Contagion Research Institute is funded by Charles Koch, and its mission is to, quote, track, expose, and combat misinformation, deception, and manipulation and hate across social media channels. So his whole job is to be like
a good kind of right,
an internet warrior to expose leftists as red-brown, pseudo, crypto, whatever, fascists. So he is the worst kind of turncoat.
Yeah. I mean, I think that anybody with brandishing credentials like that should be not just treated with skepticism. You shouldn't listen to them. And also, like, I think, he says that National Bolshevism emerged in the 30s, but since the 70s has had a heavy influence on the far right. That's just not true. I just think that's like
fundamentally
very clearly
false.
Not true. National Bolshevism has never been significant, and it's way less so now than it was in the 30s.